You're watching Saturday Story Time, 30 January 2021 edition. Welcome back to Saturday Story Time. Let's get started. First, it's Mother Earth, and Indonesia's back in the news. This time, it's their largest volcano, Mount Merapi, is producing a thunderous eruption. Last week we talked about the earthquake and Mount Semeru erupting. But this Mount Merapi is the most active volcano in Indonesia, pushing gas clouds 10,000 feet into the sky. It's been picking up activity since late 2020. This is the largest eruption since danger level was raised to a 3 for the region in November. There's also a great deal of rain this time of year, so there's a risk of flooding and mudslides in the area, especially where ash has fallen. More earthquakes have been reported in the region. Earthquakes and volcanic eruptions are common in Indonesia, as it is located on the Ring of Fire. So again, our hearts and prayers go out to Indonesia. The Atlantic Ocean is widening, but researchers aren't exactly sure why. In general, there's an upsurge of matter from deep beneath the Earth's crust that could be pushing the continents of North and South America apart from Europe and Africa. These plates are adjoined along this mid-Atlantic ridge, a site where new plates are formed and a dividing line between the plates moving to the west and to the east. Beneath this ridge, material rises to replace the space left by the plates. So the conventional wisdom has said that this is driven by gravity forces as denser parts of the plate sink back into the Earth. However, there are no plates sinking here. Now, these seismologists have placed 39 seismometers along this mid-Atlantic ridge. They're saying that this is material welling up from the mantle as much as 600 kilometers beneath the mid-Atlantic range, and this could be pushing the plates apart. This is the first large-scale, high-resolution imaging of the mantle beneath the mid-Atlantic range, one of the few experiments of its kind. Now, to those amazing animals, these baby T-Rexes were born ready to hunt. Scientists have found embryonic remains from the group of ferocious man-eating Tyrannosaurus rexes, and it looked like these were record-sized babies. They looked very much like adults, and it appears they were born ready to hunt. The bones indicate that these were bigger than any other known dinosaur babies, 3 feet long, the size of a medium dog. They must have been enormous eggs, perhaps the largest dinosaur eggs currently known. Adult Tyrannosaurus rex grew up to 40 feet long and weighed up to 8 tons. The scientists are amazed at how similar the embryonic bones are compared to older juvenile and adult Tyrannosaurus rex, and noticed that the jaws boasted functional teeth. So it appears these baby T-Rexes were born ready to hunt. I wonder what the interview questions are like, but Twitter is looking for bird watchers for their Birdwatch community forum to combat misinformation. So social media continues to become an interesting exercise of free speech. Along the lines of social media, typically for story time, I'm looking for stories that won't become big in the news because, well, I want to talk about stories that you might miss otherwise. When I originally saw this meme stock bubble story, I thought, well, this is an interesting story, but it really gained legs this week. This is a story about two groups of people, rich, powerful, and politically connected, and just regular people looking to invest in some stock. Well, it turns out these Redditors have been collaborating on buying GameStop stock. The hedge funds have all shorted GameStop stock, meaning they borrow stock at a lower price and anticipate that that activity will push the price of the stock down even lower. But these Redditors got together and bought up all of the GameStop stock, pushing it up to incredible amounts, and what that does to the people holding the short sell is they have to make up the difference between the price of the stock that they borrowed it at and the current price. So these hedge funds lost billions of dollars potentially. This story continues to unfold as the apps that the little guys have been using to purchase stock have been selling that purchasing information to the hedge funds, giving them an advantage in trading, and they've also limited the little guys' ability to purchase more of the stock, and they're forcing them to sell it at a reduced price. The little guy loses, and I don't know if any of us remember Occupy Wall Street, but I would have thought that we would have learned our lesson by now. I would invite you to call your congressman and let them know that you would like to see that the market is a fair exchange regardless of whether you're a big hedge fund trader or a retail stock purchaser. Someone is suing Subway saying their 100% wild-caught tuna doesn't contain any tuna at all. Subway has responded, these claims are meritless. Independent testing repeatedly affirmed Subway makes the tuna product with no actual tuna fish. But the plaintiffs did not name the agencies that conducted the tests. The suit claims Subway profits by mislabeling tuna products using cheaper ingredients. This will be an interesting one to see how that comes out. So now we're going into outer space, and SpaceX sets another record this week. This time it's with the most satellites launched in a single launch. 143 spacecraft caused a traffic control challenge. I've linked to two different stories here. This picture down below is a picture inside the fairing with all of the satellites racked up there. So January 24th, the SpaceX Falcon 9 launched 143 small satellites for a wide range of customers. This mission was called Transporter 1. The previous record of 104 satellites was set by an Indian Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle in 2017. So this is a ride-share mission. SpaceX worked directly with satellite operators as well as several ride-share aggregators, including D-Orbit, ExoLaunch, NanoRacks, and Spaceflight, to fly payloads on the mission. So this posed a challenge for U.S. Space Command, which tracks the satellites and other objects in orbit. You can follow the link in the description down below to my blog to find the links to this story to get a detailed breakdown of the various satellites and companies that were involved with this launch. Another record for SpaceX, congrats! So this TRAPPIST-1 system has 7 Earth-sized exoplanets that are incredibly similar to each other. Some of these planets are slated to be observed by the James Webb Space Telescope scheduled to launch in October. The planets are too small and faint to be seen from any current ground or space-based telescopes. Researchers are trying to take a stab at how much iron, oxygen, magnesium, and silicon these planets contain. This TRAPPIST system with 7 planets, all of them are rocky and similar to Earth in size. Initially, researchers only identified 3 planets around this star TRAPPIST-1 in 2016, but then they used multiple telescopes and discovered the other 4 planets using the transit method, measuring dips in starlines as the planets pass in front of the star. They're in tight formation around an ultra-cool dwarf star. These planets are so close that they would all fit within the orbit of Mercury around the Sun. That's pretty close. So if you were on one of these planets, all of the other planets would appear like large moons in the sky. The densities of these planets are so close to each other, there's only 3% difference between them. Their density is only 8% different than the density of the Earth, but this suggests that these planets were made in an entirely different way. The composition of these planets could be much less iron compared to the Earth. Astronomers have suggested that some of the planets orbiting TRAPPIST-1 could be in the habitable zone. That's where the right temperature supports liquid water and perhaps life. This system could be twice as old as our solar system. Using the James Webb Space Telescope in the future, they could learn if these planets have atmospheres and what the composition of those atmospheres are. And as an added bonus, we've tossed in this article talking about Trappist beer. Actually, the Trappist 1 system was named for Trappist beer because these astronomers like this beer. And so you can read up on what actually constitutes this Trappist beer. So there's a company called Axiom Space, and they're actually going to assemble private space crews, each person paying $55 million to fly on a SpaceX rocket to the International Space Station. You can meet this Axiom Space AX-1 crew. This will be the first private space crew to fly to the International Space Station. They'll spend 8 days on board ISS. Retired astronaut and Axiom Vice President Michael Lopez Alegria flew to space 4 times in his 20-year career. He'll be the first person to command a civil, commercial, human space mission. This week, NASA had a spacewalk and they were hooking up a new science platform, but one of the cables was too short, unfortunately. Mike Hopkins and Victor Glover spent 6 hours and 56 minutes on the spacewalk. This was the first spacewalk for Glover, and he's the first black astronaut to live and work aboard the space station. This is the Bartholomew space platform, and they noted that there were issues making the cable connections. 2 of the 3 cables were successfully connected, and they were able to send signals back to the Earth. This Bartholomew is a high-tech balcony about 6 feet by 8 feet attached to the space station, and it's operated by Airbus. It's designed to house science experiments such as small 3D printers to allow work in microgravity. The platform has direct views of Earth and 12 slots for science experiment chambers and a high-speed communication link to operators in Europe. There's another spacewalk scheduled to complete the long-term battery upgrade for the space station's power system, but it looks like they're going to need an extension cord for Bartholomew. We talked about this before on StoryTime. This is a mini-moon that temporarily orbited the Earth. This is 2020 SO. It's actually the booster from a Centaur rocket from the Surveyor 2 lunar probe mission back in 1966. Unfortunately, Surveyor 2 crashed on the moon when it had an engine failure. But the Centaur rocket has been orbiting around in space, and it finally made its way back to Earth, making its closest approach on December 1st. It's coming back for one more victory lap, and then it's going to be on its way. So, alas, mini-moon, we didn't get to know you that well. We spoke last week about NASA's Mars Perseverance rover being just 30 days away from landing on Mars. Here, UAE's HOPE probe is the first of 3 missions to arrive at Mars next month. We talked about these missions previously in July when they took off for Mars. NASA's Perseverance rover, China's Tianwen-1 mission, and HOPE, the UAE orbiter. Tianwen has an orbiter and a rover, and Perseverance is the rover, and it actually has a little helicopter inside of it too. They launched around the same time because of the alignment between Mars and Earth on the same side of the Sun, making it an efficient journey. And the HOPE probe will be the first of these missions to arrive at Mars. The UAE Space Agency will share live coverage beginning February 9th at 10 a.m. Eastern. The HOPE probe will make UAE only the 5th country to reach the red planet. The probe is intended to survey the Martian atmosphere and observe seasonal and daily changes. We're especially interested to understand the influences that cause the loss of Martian atmosphere. So they'll be firing thrusters for 30 minutes before reaching Mars to slow it down so that it can be captured in orbit. It's traveling at 75,000 miles per hour, and they need to slow it down to 11,000 miles per hour. And they will use a ground station in Spain to communicate with the HOPE probe. Communication takes between 10 or 11 minutes between Mars and Earth. Less than half of the spacecraft that have been sent to Mars have actually made it successfully, so this presents quite a challenge. Good luck! The Big Bang may have had a mysterious kick that produced dark matter. The universe today is composed of matter and its antimatter counterpart. They should form equal amounts and they would essentially cancel each other out. But that never happened. And it's really due to this creation of dark matter very early on. It's a mysterious substance that tugs on everything else, yet doesn't interact with light. We don't quite know what dark matter is, but it's out there. It makes up 80% of all matter in the universe, outweighing stars, galaxies, dust, and gas that we can see. Scientists are still grappling to understand this 80-20 split. The generation of regular matter and dark matter had nothing to do with each other. We have no clue how dark matter originated in the early universe. It's outside the bounds of known physics. It's thought that very early, within minutes of the universe's formation, the balance between matter and antimatter shifted, relegating antimatter to obscurity as regular matter flooded the universe. And at that same time, mysteriously, dark matter became the dominant form of matter in the universe. This is interesting, this study of baryon number symmetry. Baryons are all of the particles made of quarks, protons, and neutrons. And it simply states that the number of baryons entering a process must equal the number of baryons exiting it. And this symmetry is consistent in all of these experiments. But when it's observed that this baryon process gets disrupted, then a Goldstone boson appears. This is due to the symmetry of a strong nuclear force being broken. And maybe dark matter is a kind of Goldstone boson. Researchers have this notion that there was this kick that broke the baryon number symmetry and produced dark matter. So their theory proposes that during a single event, the universe became flooded with dark matter particles. And then the universe settled down with this 80-20 split between dark matter and regular matter. And antimatter remains very sparse. Make sure to look for the link in the description down below to my blog, where you'll find all of the URLs to the stories we just talked about. Thank you, and have a great week. Thank you for watching ShotokuTech. Please subscribe, comment, like, and share.